Welcome to codezing.org. This project we're going to work on is level 1. It's one of the last ones in level 1, so it's a little harder than some of the earlier ones. We're calling this one area of a triangle. You can find it at codezing.org/area_triangle, or even easier in my opinion is just go to the website codezing.org, level 1 code, and let's find it's the last one here. This one's another just mathematical calculation, the area of a triangle. It's a little more complex in that it gives you different ways to calculate the area of a triangle depending on what you know about your triangle. And as you move into geometry and a little bit more advanced math, they'll give you more complex ways to calculate the area of a triangle. We'll just do the first one as an example. Base times height divided by 2 will give you your area. So if the base is 5 and the height is 5, the area is 12.5. 5 times 5 is 25, divided by 2, 12.5. Alright, very cool. Let's scroll down and grab the code. So if we go down to View, Python Code, you can see this one is generally longer than the ones we've done so far and looks more complex, which is the direction we're heading. If you open up Spider IDE and paste this in here, you can see it's significantly longer than the ones we've done in the past. If you don't have Spider or Python, head back to the website and follow the links to get it. So let's take a look at this. And instead of focusing on the math, which in the rectangle and circle calculations, we looked at a lot of the math of, inputting and converting the text string to an integer so that it can do the math, and then what the rounding function is doing here, and then the actual calculations that, 1 asterisk is multiply. This is looks a little more complex, but it's not that much more. It's just taking these variables that were calculated and doing simple subtraction and multiplication and the square root to figure it out. So this formula I got, I think probably from a book, but I'm not here to teach you geometry. I'm here to teach you coding. So we'll skip the formalities of where these formulas come from and just assume that I copied them out of the book, right? What I want to focus on is this part, the if, the method choices, how we can give a user multiple choices and they can pick one and it'll do different things. So it's importing math again, which gives it the functionality for square root down here and for sine, and also to convert the angle from radians. Anyhow, you don't need that knowledge right now. So we're going to print out the choices. So in the past we've only just used this input method. This one actually is just printing out some information to the user so they know what their choices are. So it's printing them out and they get 1, 2, or 3, and it says choose method, enter method number. So let's run it. So it's printing out number 1 is base times height, number 2 is length of 3 sides, number 3 is length of 2 sides and their angle, and choose the method. So let's choose method 1, and then it's going to ask you for the base and the height, and it's going to do the calculation for you. So how does it know which set of calculations to do? And it does that by the if statement. So method choice is what we entered here. So we entered 1. So if we do print method choice, we'll just do that on the next run so you can see that we're getting a method choice, and then it's asking kind of a question here: if the method choice is equal to 1. So 2 equal signs is the test for if something equals something else. 1 equal sign is to set a value to a variable. So 1 equal sign is taking this, our input, and setting it equal to this variable. If you want to do a test of whether something's true or not, you need 2 equal signs. So this is saying if the integer of our method choice, so remember in our other discussions that when you use input it does it as a string, and to do the comparison we just need them to be the same, so the same variable type. So we're checking if the integer of method choice is equal to 1, the integer 1, then do these next 3 steps. If the integer of method choice is equal to 2, then do these steps. If the integer of method choice equals 3, then do these 4 steps. And then at the end, print out area of the triangle is area. Because in all 3 steps, we're finding the area. We're just using different methods to find the area. So let's print out method choice so we can see what that is, and then we'll print the type of the method choice so you can see how that's all coming in. And then let's print out this this test, because you can see what Python is doing behind the scenes when it's evaluating those. Let's print that out. So our method will be method 1, and we'll do the same. So we can see what happened here. So I entered method 1 here. It printed out my space. And then my method choice was 1, which is what I entered. And that is a string, which is fine. But just the variable type. It means it's text. It's not reading that as a number. And then this print integer of the method choice equals 1 is coming back as true. So when you have an if statement, Python evaluates it as either true or false. If it's true, then it will do what's underneath the if statement. If it's false, it won't do anything that's underneath the if statement. So if integer of the method choice equals 1, if that evaluates to true, which in this case it did, right, we can see it evaluated to true, then it's going to ask for the base, which it did, and ask for the height, which it did, and then it's going to calculate the area here. And then Python is going to go to this next if statement. If the integer of method choice equals 2, which it did not, and we can, why don't we print that out? Let's see. Why not? Let's see what it's doing here. So you can see it is going through all of these choices. Run it that way. Alright, method 1, and we'll do the same, 10 and 5. And you can see that it did just like up above. It took method choice 1, which is a string, and it evaluated this first test as true, because it does equal 1. It did what was underneath this if statement. It asked me for the base, asked me for the height, and returned an area. Next, it went down here to continue the code and did this test. And that test came back false, and so it does not run or even look at any of this code. It goes straight down to the next if statement, and it does this test, and that test comes back false. And since it comes back false, it doesn't do any of this code either, and then it skips down to the bottom. It says print the area of a triangle is 25. So you can see it's very logically going step by step by step through the code, doing the tests, and if it's true, it runs the code below the if statement. A key thing in Python and quite a few languages is keeping this spacing. So this is a tab, the length of a tab on your computer keyboard. So the way that Python knows what to do after the end of the if statement is what is tabbed underneath it. And as soon as you get rid of the tab, it knows that that's a next if statement to test. Right, the next block of code to run. So let's see. One thing I like to do sometimes in these if statements, if I'm getting confused about what it's looking at or what it's testing, I just kind of put in like these found notes. So that way you can see what is it doing behind the scenes. So if I put in these print statements, you can actually see, we'll be able to see whether it's doing what's underneath the if statement. This one, oops, it did not like my, see, just like I said, the indenting is very important. I put 2 indents here, and it's only expecting 1 indent, so it's mad at me. Okay, and it would be mad about that one too. Okay, so it doesn't like indents where there aren't supposed to be. Base times height, 5, 10. And I think this is interesting because you can see that it's doing this test, that's coming back true, and then it's running this code, print found 1. As it comes down here and it evaluates this to false, you can see it does not run this code. It doesn't even evaluate. It doesn't look at it. Otherwise, it would have said print found 2. Right? We get print found 1, enter base, enter height, and then it's going straight to the false, and it's not doing the print found 2. Method 2 we're going to try, and let's say we do a 4, 5, 6, and we get the area is 9.9216. But let's look at what it was doing along the way. So it found my method choice. Right, it found my method choice as 2, and the type of my method choice is string. Then it's coming down here, print integer method choice equals 1 is false. Right, so it's not doing any of this. It's evaluating this as false. It's not going to print out found 1. It's going to the next evaluation, print int method choice equals 2, and it's saying that is true, and then so it's going to run the code underneath here. Right, so it's printing found 2, it's asking me these questions, enter length of side A, side B, and side C, and then it's going to this step and evaluating was the method choice equal to 3, and it's coming up false, so it's not running any of this code, and then it's printing out the area of the triangle is at the bottom. Let's say do choice 3 now. 5, 4, and 30 degrees. We get the area is 5. So we can see what it's doing on its steps here. So it's printed out my space. Method choice was 3. My class is a string. It's evaluating this first part. Was my method choice equal to 1? False. Skipping all the code underneath that if statement. Was my method choice equal to do? False. So skipping all of that code. And then going down here to 3. True. So it prints out found 3. Asks me the questions, length of the sides and the angle. Does the calculation. Prints out the area. So I think a couple of key points in this one, these if statements, right, is to do a test. And in a lot of the games, we're going to use that to help the user make choices. You're going to ask them for a choice, they're going to give an input, and you have to evaluate, well, if you chose to do this, run a certain code. If you chose to do something else, run a second set of code. So play around with the if statements, play around with the code underneath. Obviously I did this one as mathematics, but you could do anything you want, right? You could say, you know, maybe you're doing some kind of puzzle, you're giving them choices, they can enter choice 1, 2, or 3, and then you have different code for under here. So you just have it say print hello. Say print hello, hello, and print hello, hello, hello. Right? It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be the math. I kind of like the math because we're heading in that direction. But you could say, you know, how many times do you want me to say hello? Take that out. And maybe you need to tell them that the only choices are 1, 2, or 3, so they don't try it 27 times or something. And we're not using the math anymore. That's what's giving us the little triangle there. How many times do you want them to say hello? 1, 2, or 3? 2. And it says hello, hello. Oh, and it remembers that from the last run. And that area was still stored in its memory, so it printed that out too. How many times do you want me to say hello? 3. Hello, hello, hello. Right, and each time it's taking this method choice that we asked for, doing the true-false comparison, and then running that code below the if statement. Alright, it's very cool. A little bit on if statements. Those are going to be big in the next module, so hopefully this was a good introduction. If you have questions, you can leave comments on the video or email info@codezing.org. But this will be big in the next ones coming up, so hopefully you understand. If not, ask questions.